Hi everyone, I'm Beth Blackerby and I'm making this video on behalf of Blackerby Violin Shop. And I'm making it because we all want you to do your absolute best for Regent auditions. So I have some really good practice advice for you. And before we get started, I wanted to let you know that I'm going to be at Blackerby Violin Shop, 1111 West Anderson Lane on October 6th from 1 to 3. So it's an open masterclass. You can stop by. I would recommend stopping by earlier than later because if everyone waits till the end, you'll have less opportunity to play and get feedback. But you can play for me. I will give you some feedback. Hopefully I can give you some really good pointers to make your audition even better. So come by and see me October 6th, Blackerby Violin Shop in the recital hall from 1 to 3. Underneath this player are some links, and I'll explain what they're for. The first link, if you want to go ahead and print up your excerpt, I made a copy where I have all of the measure numbers, so you can kind of refer to the measure numbers as I talk about the piece. I also have fingerings. Now, you may not need them, but I just put them in there because I want you to notice something about the finger markings that I put, and I'll explain that as well. So let's just get right to the point. Okay, this Wohlfahrt Etude is just full of arpeggios. Okay, arpeggios are essentially chords, but instead of playing lots of notes all together, you play notes in succession. But here's the problem with arpeggios. Because they are harmonic, in other words, because the succession of notes sounds like harmony, sounds like chords, the human ear is particularly keen on intonation, on hearing good or bad intonation. So intonation becomes even more important. Imagine if I played a chord slightly out of tune. You hear it it's so obvious that it's out of tune. So we're talking about essentially chords, harmony. These arpeggios outline chords. Okay, so intonation is probably the main factor in working on this piece. Another one is going to be tone, because we have to sound good when we play. So we're going to address tone, but I really want to talk about this intonation. I read somewhere, and I don't even remember where it was, but the words were, the best way to play in tune is to never play out of tune. And it's such an obvious statement, but if you think about it, you start to come up with all these ideas about how to never play out of tune. So one way to never play out of tune is to teach yourself how to play in tune from the very beginning, in the beginning stages of your practice. And one of the ways we can do that is by practicing with drones. Okay, so drones it's like a background pitch. And so then when you play your notes, you are matching your notes to a background note. So let's say that I had this G drone, and I'm going to match my notes. And so I can tune to the drone. Okay, now we can't really make our own drones, so that's my first tool for you. I made this really awesome practice tool so you can practice intonation. The purpose is that you practice slowly. So I'm going to show you what that is now. Okay, this is called a sound slice. So what I did is I produced drones that match the harmony of the arpeggios in your piece, and they're going to change at the appropriate time. But you have to follow the metronome. So each metronome click is an eighth note. So it would sound like this. So this is such a valuable tool for practice. And this is one of the ways you're going to play in tune by never playing out of tune. Another way is to make sure your finger action is working correctly. All right, so finger action is dropping and lifting. We have to drop the finger, pretty quickly. We got to stop the string. That's how we have really clean sounding notes without kind of fuzzy sounds coming out. And sometimes we have to lift the finger quickly when we are going down a passage, when we have to lift our fingers off. There are other times where we have to lift our fingers slowly. Okay, and this is what a lot of people don't realize. So when I'm going to use the etude as the example. So when I'm playing this etude, if I can leave fingers down when I'm putting down new fingers, that's just going to make my intonation that much better. So in other words, you don't want to see this. Here's what's not to do. Okay, did you hear how grossly out of tune that was? So every time I put down a finger, I lifted up the old finger. Okay, that is an open invitation for bad intonation to just walk right in. So we're going to leave fingers down as much as we can. And to train your left hand properly, I have another tool for you. It's basically a part that I made, and I put a line next to each finger that should be left down. And the line extends to the point where it should be held down, and then when the line stops, you lift it up. Okay, so I tried to be really careful about these lines. So let me give you an example. So we're gonna take that first measure again. Okay, but we're gonna have a different camera, one that's on my hand. Okay, so here we go. So even at the beginning, when I play that second finger on the B, I'm not gonna lift it the very, very same second that I go to the D. I'm gonna leave it down for just a second. And I'm gonna cross over to the D string, but my second finger hasn't left the G string quite yet. Once I get the D string sounding, once my bow is safely on the D string, now I lift my second finger. Okay, this is really important to clean playing. Okay, now I shift. Now, I want you to watch my first finger, okay? I'm gonna leave my first finger down, because if I leave it down, my third finger has a better idea of where it should go. I need the first finger to measure that distance. Okay? What's my first finger gonna do now? Now it has to go over to the A string, but it's gonna go like this. Okay, so instead of the first finger lifting up and then finding its place again on the A string, it's gonna go like this. Like that. That's how your first finger moves. It goes like this. Now watch my first finger. Okay? So what we're doing is we are minimizing the amount of movement of our first finger. That's how we're going to play in tune. Okay, continuing. Now I want you to take a look at these next several notes. I'm going to leave my first finger down. My fourth finger is grateful. It knows where to go because I left my first finger down. I'm going to already be finding my second finger. I'm leaving these fingers down for just a second. As soon as I find that note, now I take them off. Now I'm going to leave the second finger down. I'm going to keep leaving it down. I go back to the fourth finger. And there's my first finger. So my first finger never really left its place. Okay, I didn't really hold the string down or press it down all that hard the whole time, but it just stayed in place because I was coming right back to it. So I'll play it a little faster. And certainly the faster you go, the easier it is and the more practical it is to leave that first finger down the whole time. I'm not going to go through every measure. This video would be so very long. But that's the approach I want you to take. And you can print up the music that I made for you with the lines that will help guide this kind of practice. All right, if you're brave, I have this final practice tool, and it's fantastic. It's another link, and you're going to see your music, you're going to see the Wohlfahrt, and underneath it, you're going to see a bunch of open strings. And you're going to be like, what is that? It's essentially what your bow does. All right, so why don't you print it up and look at it while I'm talking about it. All right, so you probably have never seen anything quite like this before. Essentially what I did underneath your part is I wrote the strings. So we only have 4 strings. So you see only G's, D's, A's, and E's. I wrote the strings that your bow is supposed to be on when you're playing this. So the purpose of this is to give you insight and to teach your right arm what it's supposed to do without having to play the left hand. Because when we're concentrating, when we're focusing on intonation, when we're reading music, our right arms love to misbehave. They like to get stiff. Our string crossings start to suffer. They start to get kind of messy. So this is how you're going to train your right arm to be really, really good. So what I want you to do is, as you're practicing, if you get to a measure that you feel is just not spectacular, then you stop, and I want you to practice the bow line. So I'm going to choose a random measure. So here's measure 14, for instance. So let's say when I was playing that, maybe I don't know, I hesitated, or the string crossing wasn't great, or something happened. So then I look down and I say, okay, here's what my bow arm does. So I played measure 14 in the downbeat of 15. Now I am going to keep doing that until I have this feeling of, that's really easy. That's just not hard. I could even do that without looking. And then I ask myself, well, how fluid is my arm? Am I making really jerky motions, or is my arm really smooth? Are my string crossings really smooth? So to make your string crossings really smooth, your arm always has to be in motion a little bit. It's called I'm preparing. I'm preparing the A string by lifting before I get there. I prepare the D string, lifting my arm before I get there. If I wait to the last second, then that can happen. So I would say do it about 5 times. Then you add the left hand. Go back to the bow arm line. Add left hand. I would like for you to be able to do that until this magical thing happens. 1, it just starts to feel easier. It's like all of a sudden playing feels easier. Some of the struggle goes away. Also, to where you can think on 2 levels. This is not easy to do, and it doesn't happen automatically. Where you have these 2 levels of thinking. You can actually be aware of the bow line, where you can feel your arm doing that pattern, while at the same time read the music and listen to the intonation. So this is a very powerful tool, very powerful practice technique. It will make you a better player. It won't just improve the Wohlfahrt, it will actually improve your overall playing. All right, good for you. If you have stuck with me and have listened to me talk this whole time, then that means you really want to learn, you're going to improve, and you're going to really have a great audition. Also, I want you to email me. All right, this is only for those of you who are listening. Email me at violinlab@gmail.com. violinlab@gmail.com, and I'll send you some surprises. All right, so good luck on your audition. Before you start playing, take some deep breaths, and here's what helps me when I feel nervous and I'm playing. I tell my right thumb to let go. Even though it feels like I need to hold on tight, I tell my right thumb to just be as loose like this as possible, because my violin is holding up the bow. I'm not going to drop it. So if I just loosen that thumb and loosen my bow grip, then some of those shakies go away. All right, well, good luck on your audition.